Listen, I know keeping up with your authority and renewals can be a challenge. As a thank you to Talk CDL listeners, J.J. Keller would like to offer 6 months of free D.O.T. authority monitoring to a lucky listener. Basically, we'll watch over your authority, send you a monthly report for 6 months, help you fix anything that falls out of compliance, and renew your MCS 150 form and VMT, as well as file your UCR for free. After 6 months, you can choose to cancel or continue your service for just $39.99 a month. To enter and for official rules, visit truckingauthority.com/talkcdl.
Hey drivers, have you thought about becoming your own company? Have you thought you'd like to get your own authority and DOT number, but you just don't know how to go about doing it? Well, call J.J. Keller and Associates. They can help you get the proper registration and credentials that you need to operate legally. They protect drivers from penalties and out of service orders as a result of not having the proper authority. They save drivers time by filing their paperwork and ensuring everything is correct. Drivers, they also help you with unified carrier registration, US DOT and MC numbers, MCS 150 updates, year-around authority monitoring, and plenty more. Drivers, if you're looking to become your own company and you want your own authority number and DOT number today, call J.J. Keller and Associates at 888-601-2017. That's 888-601-2017 and tell them Talk CDL sent you. Thank you. Hey drivers, are you looking for a new job or are you looking just to become a new lease driver? Well, NCI offers new Kenworth T680 double bunk condos with APU and refrigerator, all standard in all of their equipment. Come aboard and become a lease operator, or you can become a company driver. NCI offers regional positions, over-the-road positions, team positions, and also NCI will take on a few students if you've graduated from a trucking school. Pick up the phone, check out NCI, and see if they have what you're looking for at 888-311-7076. That's 888-311-7076. Did you find Hiawatha? Hello? See, you said hello, I said hi. You said hey, I said Hiawatha. You said, what kind of language is that? I said, it's Indian. It's an Indian name or something. Am I right or wrong?
Well, you're...
Say it. Fonzie.
You're right. Well, here's the thing.
How do you spell Hiawatha?
Hiawatha. Hiawatha.
Oh, okay. I see Hiawatha.
Yeah, and it's an epic. It's a 1855 epic poem in Trochaic tetrameter by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, which features Native American characters. There you go with your Indian. The epic relates to fictional adventures of a OJIBWE warrior named Hiawatha.
All right, and so what Indian was what tribe was he from? What Indian?
It's make believe.
Oh, it's make believe.
Yeah.
No way. There was no real Hiawatha?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's an Indian hero of Longfellow's poem, The Song of Hiawatha.
Okay. All right, to trucking. So today we are going to have a guest on from, what's the company called? Hello?
J.J. Keller. I'm sorry, I'm still reading this.
I know, like,
I got stuck on it.
People are listening going, oh my God, they don't even know who their guest is.
No.
You guys got to know Ruth Ann. When she's fixated on something,
I can be one-tracked.
She cannot pay attention to something else.
Well, it does say here, what tribe is Hiawatha? And it says Hiawatha, he makes a river, is what it means, is a legendary chief of the Onondaga tribe of North America Indians.
Uganda?
So, not Uganda. Onondaga. Onondaga.
Okay. So can we go back to trucking?
Yes,
I mean,
please.
Sorry. All right. So J.J. Keller.
J.J. Keller.
Is going to be, do we know who is coming on? Who is the spokesman for Keller? Rick. And J.J. Keller is a company that's like that helps you get your DOT numbers, and they can help you become your own company, and they help you with all kind of compliant things to do with trucking, correct?
Correct.
And so what we want to do is we want to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how can these drivers, because there's a lot of drivers that want to get their own company someday. Everybody wants their own company.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they don't really understand how to go about it. They're like, well, I need customers, I need trucks, I need to be able to get loans. We know people that do that also. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is, here's a company that can get you I'm pretty sure every piece of paper you need to be compliant with the Department of Transportation to become, Trucker Joe's trucking company, and start hiring drivers. And, of course, it sounds more simple. It sounds like I'm making it really simple, but it actually is. Of course, probably the harder part is, hooking up with a customer, getting loads, getting a truck, picking up a driver, getting them on it, you know what I mean? And really blowing the customer away to where they give you more and more freight. Next thing you know, you're growing and growing and growing.
Well, I think it depends on the mentality of the person that's starting the business. I mean, if some drivers would feel as though that's the easy part, would be getting the freight because they might have been driving for an owner-operator and that might be something that they're accustomed to. They might just have a harder time finding out from start to finish business behind the scenes of the semi. What are those steps? And that's where J.J. Keller comes into effect, because they help you with all your D.O.T. compliance. They help you with getting all that,
your authority numbers,
all of that other information is what they're there for you.
And let's be honest about me personally. If I was right now back on the road and I said, all right, I'm going to form a trucking company, I would get frustrated going on those you've been on the dot.
No, you would say, Ruthann, take care of it.
Well, let's just say you were killed in a car accident or something, right? And you were gone.
Did I die from a semi?
Yeah, you got run over by a Pete.
Okay.
Right?
Grandma got run over by a Pete.
That's right. And you are a grandma.
I am.
All right. So anyway, there you are. You're dead and gone. And there I am, Troy, the dude trying to figure out, okay, now what am I going to do? My girl's gone. But anyway, so next thing you know,
he had a smile on his face when he said that.
I'm going online to these .gov sites. I'm serious. I mean, I've tried to help truck drivers with different things, on the .govs and maneuvering around. And then you got to form an account. Then you got to upload paperwork. And then you got to look things up. And then I've got to read something 500 times before I go, oh, okay, now I understand it. But it sounds like Keller, I mean, honestly, it's good that the industry has people like these guys that are coming on that can say, hey, just, and I don't think it's difficult for them. They just say, okay, what do you want to be? Blah, blah, blah. And they do the paperwork for you and show you where you need to be keeping up to date. And they work with you the entire time if you want to stay with them. Mm-hmm. I think that's great to have.
No, honestly, J.J. Keller, they sent us a little box of some stuff.
Chocolates?
No. They could have thrown that in there, though. I am a chocolate fiend.
So Keller never sent you chocolates?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
No.
So what else?
But they sent...
they're going to be calling any minute, by the way.
They sent where it was other stuff where it was showing us the different things that they do supply a person that wants to have their own authority and what they need to do as far as little stuff like log stuff and...
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and see if Keller's going to call in. I'm pretty sure they're about to call. So here we go. I'm gonna say here we go.
This is Ruthann.
Hey there, Ruthann. This is Rick Malco calling with J.J. Keller.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Well, I am doing outstanding. It's wonderful to finally be able to talk to you.
Oh, we are super excited also. So how have you said your day's going well then, Rick?
My day is going very, very well. I'm well utilized today. But other than that, I guess that's not a bad problem to have, right?
It's nice to feel needed, right?
Other than that, it's been a really good day, yes.
And Rick, we were just telling the audience a little bit about J.J. Keller and the kind of the work, and this is what we want to get into with you, is what does Keller actually do for the trucking industry and for truck drivers? We were kind of just kind of running through a few things. Like, for example, if it was me that was looking to maybe get my own authority number, my own DOT number, Ruth Ann said I would use her to do it, but we went with the scenario that maybe Ruth Ann got run over by a Peterbilt and was killed. And so I was trying to possibly look it all up myself on all the .gov sites and get the paperwork together. And I wouldn't be able to do it. I would have to call J.J. Keller.
Well, that's exactly right. It is complicated, So often, let's relate it to doing your own taxes, right? Can you do your own taxes? Well, sure you can. You can go out to the IRS website and spend hours and hours and hours of educating yourself, getting the right forms, and then spend hours reviewing those forms and the instructions for all the forms, filling them out to the best of your ability and hope that you didn't make any mistakes. Or you could use an online program that helps you along. Or you can go to your professional tax accountant and have them ask you the educated questions and fill in the appropriate forms. Well, compliance with the federal regulations as far as trucking goes is really similar to that in respect that it is very complicated. The FMCSA's websites have hundreds of pages and help, and they're not there for nothing. And then when you do finally find the right form, they all have extensive instructions to them. Most truckers and trucking companies, that's what they do for a living. They get product or people from point A to point B. They are not regulatory experts, nor do they want to become regulatory experts. But this is what I and my fellow folks at J.J. Keller do for a living. It's the space that we live in. And so we are like that tax professional that know the questions to ask and can quickly funnel somebody into the right forms to fill out and then fill them out compliantly for fleet legalization.
So is this what makes you an expert, or is there more to it than that? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Rick, would you?
Well, thanks for the question. It's a good one. So I have been in the industry for about 20 years. So the last 7 years have been with J.J. Keller as a subject matter expert in the regulations. But what really formed the foundation for that is I did work for a major trucking company for 13 years before that. My role there was, for many years, was very interesting. So we had well over 10,000 drivers, and I worked second shift. So I took the calls, me and 25 of my team members took calls for all of the drivers, answered about 1,000 driver calls a night and 4,000 driver messages a night. So my team of 25 had about 5,000 contacts per night. You can imagine with that large of a fleet just how many things go bump in the night. And because of the way that they were set up, we didn't have a lot of support from the other departments. And so I really needed to know as a leader of that team what needed to be done, and I needed to be able to do it very quickly in order to keep the fleet moving. And so it was all those thousands and thousands of touches that really set me up for success, at least at J.J. Keller. I look at my role at the J.J. Keller as somebody that is fluent in several languages. So first of all, I'm fairly fluent, in the English language, at least well enough to become an editor at the J.J. Keller. I'm also, because of my experience in the trucking industry, fluent in trucking. And then I am also fluent in the regules. And so what I'm able to do is to translate the regulations into plain English and then translate that plain English into trucking for our customers.
Layman's terms.
So what he's really saying is he can translate the difficult stuff into English and then into trucker.
Right.
Okay.
That's what
pretty
he said.
cool. I like
That's
that.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So with some of the things that J.J. Keller does, let's start with the UCR. Can you explain what a UCR is for a driver?
Oh, UCR is complicated. I mentioned that I was with the J.J. Keller 7 years. About 6 years ago, I came onto the fleet legalization team at J.J. Keller, and UCR was one that puzzled me. So it stands for Unified Carrier Registration, and what I did was I did some research online and did some research within products that J.J. Keller has, and I kept coming up with question marks. So the deeper I dug, the more questions I had. I said, what exactly are you registering? I mean, they've already registered for a USDOT number. They've already registered their vehicle with their state, either for base plates or with IRP. What exactly is this registration? As I dug deeper, I really realized that while registration is in the name, it's really not a registration other than being in the system. What UCR is a state and federal organization to help get dollars to the state. Those dollars go into a fund, and the fund then is used for the highways and also for safety programs. So it's really a way of getting much needed revenue. Everybody knows that states are really under tight crunches for money to keep the infrastructure up and to run their safety programs, and the UCR fees go for that. And so the way that it works is it's based on a sliding scale from 0 vehicles all the way up to over 1,000 vehicles. The smaller carriers paying, of course, the lower amount, somewhere around $60, and then the larger carriers that are over 1,000 vehicles paying the vast majority of it, probably not as a percentage of the total in the fund, but they pay about $60,000 almost per year into UCR. All those funds from all those carriers go into the single fund and then are proportioned out to the states.
So anybody that has a DOT number or their actual authority number has to actually participate in the UCR, the United Carriers Registration?
Yeah, if they are an interstate carrier, and so they have vehicles involved in interstate commerce. So if a carrier has an intrastate USDOT number, they would not participate. But if they are participating in interstate commerce, either as a carrier, a freight forwarder, or a broker, then they are required to participate in the program.
Okay, so what is that like after they get their DOT number? Is that what they would do as a second step, or is that one of the first steps that they should get?
So the first step, exactly right, is to have a USDOT number. You have a interstate USDOT number. As I mentioned, the fees that a carrier pays or an entity pays are based off the number of vehicles that the carrier has in operation in interstate. And so they start out using the vehicle count from their MCS 150. And of course, many carriers have a mixed fleet. They have some vehicles that are involved in interstate commerce, and then they have other vehicles that are never involved in interstate. They are only intrastate. And the filing does allow those carriers to back off, if you would, the intrastate only vehicles. And so they're paying the registration fee based on only the vehicles that are involved in interstate commerce.
Okay, so just for the heck of it, a lot of small carriers, obviously, that are not as compliant as they should be, more because they're not sure what they should be filing. Let's say one doesn't even understand what the UCR is, and they're just not paying it. What is there like a penalty? What's going to happen to those guys that haven't even really registered for this?
as far as in the United States, for the carriers, of course, that are involved in the program, enforcement normally comes down to the state level, and there's a couple of ways that you come under the radar, if you will, of the state enforcement folks, and you're kind of waving a red flag. The first is to change brackets. So because there is such a variance in the sliding scale, if the carrier drops, for instance, 2 brackets, that is going to be waving a red flag. And there's certainly nothing wrong with doing that if that is indeed the case. But certainly the state auditors are going to be interested in finding out, did you really reduce fleet size by that amount? Well, we want to know. And so they will do an audit to make sure the fleet was actually reduced by that amount, and you're not just trying to drop down in brackets. If you don't file at all, the enforcement that many states have is that you just won't be able to register your vehicles. And of course, if a carrier provides false information on their UCR filing, then they could be subject to the state's perjury rules.
So they can get in trouble if they don't file everything the way they should. And I think that might be some of the issues with some of them.
Absolutely, they can get in trouble, and there is enforcement. And even at a roadside inspection, the officer or the enforcement officer can do a search to make sure that the UCR fees have been paid by that carrier.
So I'm going to throw an audible at you. Do you handle the drug consortiums also on your end, or do you not work with that?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Drug consortiums. Do you work with that, with the smaller companies, setting that up also, or is that something out of your wheelhouse?
You're right. That is kind of a left turn. Yes, we J.J. Keller absolutely does help carriers with drug and alcohol consortiums. And for those that may not be aware of, exactly what that is, a consortium is just pooling multiple carriers into a single pool for, random testing. Random testing procedures it is found in Part 382 in Section 303, I believe. And so the random selection is based on a percentage of CDL drivers on an annualized basis. 10% of the drivers by count need to be tested for alcohol, and 50% for controlled substances. The trouble is, if you're a smaller carrier, maybe you only have 4 drivers, let's say. Well, that means that you got 10% of 4 is 4/10 of a driver. Nobody really wants a Solomon solution, I don't think. With that, plus you've got to do quarterly tests, and so essentially you're pulling somebody in every single quarter when you wouldn't need to. And so what a consortium does is you may have 10,000 drivers in the consortium, and your drivers are in there. So your 4 drivers are in there. Your driver may not have been selected, none of your drivers for the past 5 years, because you only have 4 in the entire pool. But you're still compliant with the random program because the consortium itself is meeting the numbers. So they're pulling on a weighted annualized basis, 10% for alcohol and 50% for controlled substances. So as long as they're meeting your numbers, you're meeting your numbers.
And Rick, the reason I ask that is because as we're going along here, I recalled over the last 20-some years, one of the biggest things that I've seen with trucking companies when they go to hire, say, a driver that had his own company. Well, I had my own authority, and one of the first questions, okay, we always call it a drug consortium. You're saying consortium, but here nor there, one of the questions you would always ask these drivers is, were you part of a drug consortium? And the answer to 50% of these guys was, what's that? You know, they weren't even running compliant. How they were getting away with it was beyond me. And so this was just, I knew that this would be one of an interesting topics, because this is one of those things where you can get in trouble, especially when you go to apply with another trucking company. Trucking companies really don't want to hire somebody that hasn't been running compliant for the last 5 to 10 years, and they weren't DOT compliant, they weren't part of any drug pools or anything like that. And I'm glad that you guys handle that also. I mean, these are the little things that I know these guys are needing help with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, when regardless of the size of the company, you know, they want to focus on their operation. You know, not trying to decide, okay, you know, where are the numbers this year for randoms? How many do we have to pull? Who's gonna pull them? You know, and make the notifications. So it's really helpful to have somebody monitoring all of the different aspects of D.O.T. compliance, so that you can focus on, you know, what you do for a living.
Okay, let's move along here. I'm looking at something here. Talk to us about for hire authority. What is it, and who needs it?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people use authority, the term, really broadly. So a lot of folks think of having authority as having a U.S. D.O.T. number, and it's really more than that. Having a U.S. D.O.T. number just means that you're able to engage in interstate transportation with a vehicle that meets the definition of a commercial motor vehicle. So every private and for-hire carrier does need to have a U.S. D.O.T. number. The concept of authority goes way back, and it certainly back to the Interstate Commerce Commission days, and it was really to make sure that these carriers were following the financial rules as well as the safety rules. So in making sure that they had the correct amount of insurance in place, for instance. And so for hire carriers have and are required to obtain a motor carrier or an MC number. And there's several different types of authority that a carrier can obtain. Certainly a property for-hire carrier, passenger for-hire carrier are the most common. There's also a household goods authority, brokerage authority, freight forward authority. And it's just saying that not only can I operate the commercial motor vehicles in commerce, across state lines in interstate commerce, but I also can do it for somebody else. And so I can move people or product that belongs to somebody else from point A to point B. And I'm registered with the FMCSA, and I have my MCS number to show it. And then that gives the FMCSA the ability to track whether I have process agents in place, and we can certainly talk more about that, and whether I have the correct amount of insurance in place.
What else would a for-hire authority need other than the MCS through the FMCSA and their DOT number? Would there be something else that they would need to do?
Yeah, so currently, if you already have a U.S. DOT number, you get for-hire authority by filing a form known as the OP1, and a new carrier would fill out the MCSA one, the same form that they would get their U.S. DOT number on. And then they have to show that they have a process agent. A process agent is just somebody that is able to accept the legal paperwork on your behalf. And so if you're operating in multiple states, but maybe you're just based out of Wisconsin, where I am, but I've got a vehicle that's traveling across Oklahoma, and my vehicle does damage to somebody else allegedly, well, just so that they don't have to come to Wisconsin and file a claim against me, my process agent in Oklahoma will be able to accept those legal forms on my behalf, with a guarantee that they'll get them to me. And the FMCSA keeps a record of each for-hire carrier's process agents for each state, and so that if somebody from the public wants to know, okay, well, who do I contact to get a hold of this carrier, the FMCSA can let them know who the process agent is in that state. And so they do need to let the FMCSA know who the process agents are for each state of operations. They do that on a BOC3 form. And then they also have to have the required amount of insurance, the minimum level of insurance. And this has not gone up, oh my goodness, for over 30 years, but is $750,000. And it goes all the way up to $5 million for folks that are transporting 16 or more passengers or, very dangerous hazardous materials.
I don't know. For me, I probably would want the higher amount only because you see so many people wanting to do damage to other people as far as like just financially. Oh, he nicked my big toe and I'm going to sue him now type of attitude. $750,000 to me seems really small for coverage to protect yourself as a for-hire authority when you're just, you're small. You're not really a large, you only have a couple tractors maybe. I would say you'd want to have better insurance than that, in my opinion.
Oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. With the awards going up in lawsuits year after year after year, they call them nuclear verdicts. It used to make news if there was an award of several $million. Now awards are going up into the 50, 60, 70, 80 $million ranges, and so $750,000 doesn't even come close. I don't know about you folks or any of our listeners, but even on my home policy, for liability for my homeowner's insurance, liability for my car owner's insurance, I have $1 million rider just as an individual.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I have kids. I wanted to protect if one of their little friends were playing, and I didn't know what kind of parent they were. Friends. Some of them you might get really good friends with, but other ones you don't have that real closeness, so you don't know what kind of person they truly are. So we always made sure that anybody was protected if they came to our place, just in case. But as far as other programs, what other programs can you offer as far as like the IFTA or anything like that?
Yep. So there are several other programs that carriers do need to be compliant with, and there's a whole compliance alphabet soup, if you will. You just mentioned one, IFTA, or the International Fuel Tax Agreement, IRP, the International Registration Plan, HVUT for the Heavy Vehicle Use Tax through the IRS, and then there's all kinds of weight distance taxes in New York, Kentucky, New Mexico, Oregon, and so to keep track of all of these authorities, if you will, or taxes or fees from all these different states, it's really helpful to have somebody monitoring that for you, keeping track of where you're at, when the filings are due, and if the filings have been made.
So J.J. Keller will help monitor everything when it came to when you have to pay any of those, those use taxes or any of your, basically everything that you need to do. Like I have a QuickBooks program. So when I have to pay any taxes, I have to pay anything at all, it will come up and tell me, hey, you need to take care of this. So you're kind of like that to a driver, where you'll send them messages saying we need to do this, we need to do that, just to keep them on board and keep them compliant, correct?
Better yet, is there Do you have an app that they can download to work with or not?
Well, we have lots of solutions, and so depending on how comfortable a carrier or a driver is in doing it on their own, whether they want to use. I'll go back to that tax analogy. Certainly there's programs out there that you can use. Again, that can help you. You can hire an accountant that will do pretty much all of it for you. And so wherever somebody's comfort level is, we'll meet them there. J.J. Keller does not try to have one solution that is crammed into round holes, rectangular holes, triangular, holes. Whatever best fits your needs is what we'll do for you. So as much or as little as you need. You mentioned consortiums earlier can certainly, help with that. If you need help tracking driver qualification files and when everything is coming due in the driver qualification files, we can do that for you. When you onboard a driver, the safety performance history, make sure that paperwork is in order, and to complete those audits as well. Monitoring the fuel programs and the registration programs for carriers, even monitoring hours of service programs for carriers. So again, really as much or as little and as hands-on or just guidance-based as somebody would like us to be.
You mentioned the US D.O.T. numbers. What's the difference between that and the MC, and who needs to have those numbers?
It's a good question. So any carrier that's involved in interstate commerce must have a US D.O.T. number. And so even, small carriers, maybe they have a small pickup truck, let's say an F-150 pickup and a trailer, and those two combined go over 10,000 pounds, so 10,001 pounds or more, and they're involved in interstate commerce. So they're crossing a bridge in their city and they're doing work on the other side of the river, but that other side of the river happens to be another state. That individual is involved in interstate commerce with a commercial motor vehicle, and they do need to have a US DOT number in order to be able to do that. And so that's, again, pretty much where everything starts is, are you regulated?
Because that's the way.
As a carrier. And if you are, you need to have a US DOT number so that the FMCSA can track your safety history with. And then beyond that is the authority, and the authority number that's generated is that motor carrier ID, and that is what the FMCSA is going to be using to track to make sure that you have the BOC3 or the process agents in place, and to make sure that you have the right amounts of insurance, and if there's any cancellation or interruption of your coverage.
There's a bunch of redneck Super Duty Ford pickup truck guys going, I need a DOT number? I guarantee it right now. If some of them were going, damn, I didn't know that.
So if they're over 10,100 pounds, they need it.
It's really scary for some of these folks that, one of the common questions that I get, and, my team answers, several hundred questions a month, but one of the most common ones is, but I'm not a trucker, why am I regulated? Well, you're regulated because you operate a commercial motor vehicle, and the U.S. government is full of regulations, and they have agencies that create and track those regulations, and the trucking regulations are tracked and created by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and so it's their rules, if you're involved in interstate commerce, that you need to follow. And oh, by the way, if you're intrastate only, so I'm in that same vehicle, but I never leave my state, so I'm not regulated, right? Well, you may not be regulated by the FMCSA at the federal level, but you very likely will be regulated at the state level. And the reason for that is the states, in order to receive the highway dollars, have to adopt either the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations or the equivalency thereof. They do have some latitude, but certainly once the vehicle reaches the point where a CDL is required, that individual is going to be regulated about to the same degree as an interstate driver or an interstate carrier.
Wow.
I'm wowed too. I mean, I never realized that. I should have realized it went by weight for what your classification would be, whether or not you needed that US DOT number. I never really honestly thought of it. I more or less thought of it as far as the goods and, the other size of the vehicle, not a pickup truck, but,
Well, Ruth Ann, we've seen several pickups pulled over by DOT here in Florida. But my question would be, how much do the states really, and because in Florida, I've ever really seen pickup trucks pulled over, maybe for an untarped load or maybe a pickup pulling something. Are they enforcing that everywhere?
Well, most enforcement is done, of course, at the scales. Florida pretty much stops, every commercial motor vehicle at the borders as well. That's one state that does. But where enforcement is conducted, a lot of times I hear, well, I'm only operating a 12,000-pound vehicle. Do I need to pull into the scales? It's really dependent on the state that you're in, and in some states, even the scale house itself. And so if you're excluded by the sign, like let's say the sign approaching the scale says, all vehicles over 18,000 pounds or all vehicles over 26,000 pounds, must pull in. And you're under that, well, then you're safe to proceed. But most scales, many scales, says all trucks or all commercial motor vehicles, in which case you're much better off to pull in and to either be green lighted through or to be waved through than to be chased down. Because if you're chased down and you're asked to come back around, it's not going to go well for you.
right. You'd rather have the big trucks looking at you like, what's he coming in here for, than to get the DOT officer coming back and saying, no, buddy, you are actually classified. You need to come around.
That's exactly right. Your day just got a whole lot worse.
Exactly. What should be put on the truck, the MC or the DOT?
Well, it's interesting that you ask that because, you see some of these vehicles and gee whiz, it's hard to even find their US DOT number because they've got their US DOT number on there, they've got their MC number on there, they've got their KYU number on there, they've got their VIN number on there, they might have some state identification number on there. It's just this whole list of items. So for an interstate carrier, the only thing that's required to be on the vehicle is the carrier's name as it appears on their MCS 150. That has to be on both sides of the power unit. And then the letters USDOT and their USDOT number. The federal rules do not require the length of the trailer, doesn't require the height of the trailer, doesn't require your VIN number, doesn't require your address. But there are some states that may require additional information. What's interesting is a couple of years ago, the FMCSA, again, 2013, came out with a rule, and it sounded like a UCR rule, but it was the URC, the Unified Registration System. And in addition to trying to go down to a single identifier, which would be the USDOT number, they were hoping to do away at that time with the MC numbers, and they never quite got there. But one of the things that were in that rule is they were really encouraging carriers to no longer paint or put on their vehicles their MC numbers. They certainly weren't requiring folks to take them off. You don't need to go out there with a razor blade and scrape off the old decals with the MC number, but they They're saying, it's really not necessary to be on your vehicle. Of course, if you're operating in intrastate commerce, then you need to have whatever the state has. And there's some cities that get really picky too. If you're ever in the boroughs of New York City, you may come across their rules, which even require the address to be on the vehicle. So, but generally in interstate commerce, only the name or the DBA or trade name, if you have that on your MCS 150, the letters USDOT and your USDOT number.
All right, moving on, Rick. Got a question for you. I'm a trucker. I call your office today. I want my MC, my authority, DOT number. I'm supposed to be buying a truck, and it's going to be delivered within the next week. How quickly do you have me up and running legal and compliant?
Well, we can take the information and get the items filed really, really quickly. How fast you're up and running is really dependent on what we're all doing for you. For instance, USDOT numbers, gee whiz, they're almost instantaneous. We can get you a USDOT number. But there is a section in 392B9B that says you can't operate without a active USDOT number. And so that can take a little bit longer when you're getting for-hire authority to move either property or passengers. And so that can take up to 3 weeks to get that back from the FMCSA.
So we're looking at a short period, up to about 3 weeks, we can be up and rocking.
Yes, we can help people really quickly because, one, we know what needs to be done. We get that information very quickly from the individual that's interested in, being compliant and getting what they need from the states and what they need from the federal government. And then we file that with the states. And then the thing that's really beneficial maybe for many folks is, we know who to call if things aren't apparently going smoothly, and can shake the tree, so to speak, and say, okay, where are we at? We made this, filing 10 days ago. Here's the reference number. Can you look that up and tell us if there's any problems with the application or what may be holding it up? So we have really, really good follow-up with that team as well.
Before you had called in, I was telling Troy that Rebecca had sent me a cute little package from J.J. Keller of some of the supplies that you offer drivers so that I could physically see some of the work that you did. And you cover, you can hear you
sound Pennsylvania.
You can hear my northern command.
I'm used to the y'all now.
Y'all do supply many things like placards. You supply the security seals that you put in the back of the trailer. You'll help, the drivers, of course, purchase them, but you actually have everything that a driver would need for his tractor, even the ELDs.
Really, ELDs?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the, as much or as little as you need, whether it comes down to, hey, I need to have DVIRs, those the vehicle inspection reports. I need to have my annual or periodic stickers. I need to, as you mentioned, to have the seals for the vehicle. I need to have tire tread depth gauges. Whatever you need from a supply. I need to be able to secure my cargo. We can help with all of that. In addition to keeping you compliant from a paperwork, standpoint. And so one of the things that we do for folks that like are using the monitoring service is to monitor their USDOT number. A lot of us are familiar with credit monitoring. So we hire a company and say, I don't want to go out and check my credit report every week or every month to see if there's anything weird going on there. I just want to let me know if somebody's applied for credit in my name or if there's any strikes, against me, or if there's anything I need to be doing. And so that's what we do for carriers that have our monitoring service from a DOT compliance standpoint. I get often questions asked of me of, hey, I've got this really official looking letter here in my hand, and it says that I'm going to be shut down if I don't do this, and this. Is this legitimate? And we can kind of work through and find out whether that's just a marketing piece from somebody, or whether that's an official notification from a state agency. But likely, if it's an official notice from a state agency, if it is something DOT related, you never got that because we were tracking that for you and made sure that you did the filings on time.
So, out of your small carriers, and when I say small, I mean like say 10 trucks and less. What percentage would you say of these small carriers, from owner operator to 10 trucks or maybe a couple more, what percentage are actually taking the full Monty from J.J. Keller? Saying, listen, I just want you guys, I'm going to put my whole company in your hands. You guys handle everything, monitoring, paperwork, set up, check me out, and make sure I'm doing things right. What do you have? Most of them doing that, or half? Where are you at?
Well, as far as the millions of truckers out there, probably a very small percentage. But what I can tell you is the very high number of truckers and small carriers that we have. Our retention rate with them, and by that I mean, okay, they come to us and say, we're tired of doing this ourselves, and so we want your help doing it. Really, the test of how successful you are in meeting their needs is if next year they come around and say, you guys did a great job for us, well worth whatever we paid you to do that for, and we want to continue doing and partnering with you. And that percentage is extraordinarily high for J.J. Keller and these services. So, you sometimes on the front end, you don't know how much value you're going to get out of it. But on the back end, you can look back and say, wow, that was a tremendous amount of value, and I have a good value exchange, and I want to continue to partner with them. And so that percentage is really high for folks that partner with J.J. Keller for their compliance.
So, mid-sized companies to large companies, they usually have a high-priced safety director that does a lot of this paperwork, and human resources department that also participates in this type of stuff. These smaller carriers obviously are not going to go out and pay a safety director $70,000-$80,000 a year. I would imagine your program is probably going to be more in the budget, and you would take care of the things, most of the things that they would have to go out and hire people for, would be my guess. What do you think?
Well, that's right. You mentioned one, that safety manager, that safety director, and then you have, the asset manager, and then you have, the driver managers that are tracking, hours of service and tracking, driver qualifications. And then you have, other folks that are making sure that you have the IFTA and the IRP, filings done. And what we find in most smaller companies, like you had mentioned, those 10 truck type fleets, is a lot of that falls onto a single individual. And it's a no good deed goes unpunished kind of assignment. Hey, you're doing great with this. Why don't you take on IFTA and IRP as well? It's like, what? What's that? Oh, it's not too hard. You just have to, take these daily forms from the drivers, or take these daily reports from our ELDs, and then put them into quarterly reports for the programs and submit them. And then if we're audited, you need to be there for that. It's just like, oh my goodness, where do I go from there? So you could have multiple folks, and multiple hats that need to be worn. Or just
one J.J. Keller
or plan with J.J. Keller.
Yeah, just one contact with J.J. Keller, or 5 people that have to do the same job. But
that's right. So it's kind of that one phone call. I call my representative and say, hey, can you help me with this, or can you answer a question for that? And that's one of the advantages as well. So I'm on a team of, oh goodness, I think 12 subject matter experts that create content directly for our customers. And one of the advantages of partnering with J.J. Keller is you have access to me, and you have access to other folks on my team. And so if you have a question, rather than going to a search engine online and kind of punting and hoping for the best, I hope I land on a good site. If it's a forum, I hope that I land on a good forum, and I hope I can find the right answer. Folks are able to reach out. If the individual on the team doesn't to know, they are able to escalate that to subject matter experts, and we have an answer within 24 hours back to our customer.
I also noticed on your website, which is jjkeller.com, you also will have webcasts of different events or news and regulatory updates so that the drivers can go to there for it.
That's exactly right. We do, oh my goodness, probably 4 to 6 webcasts on various topics throughout the month. Most months it's considerably more than that. Of course, right now we have been doing a lot of webcasts, a lot of education materials. By the way, it's free to join our webcasts, and what we've been really covering lately are the 4 new flexibility hours of service rules. So, if you want to know what changed with adverse driving conditions, the short haul, the 30-minute rest break, split sleeper, we spend a whole hour diving into those topics. As we are coming to the end of the year, of course, we're diving into what do you need to be compliant with the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, as we're looking at a lot of the COVID exceptions sunsetting. How do we be compliant with that? Not only why we're able to use the exceptions, but now what do I need to do from a documentation point of view going forward? To fleet legalization, kind of some of the items that we're talking about today. HVUT, IRP, IFTA, US D.O.T. numbers, MC numbers, that whole category. Of course, hours of service, vehicle maintenance, the whole litany of what folks could be concerned about as they're running their operation. Yeah, we have those webcasts available frequently.
So aside from the website, which again is jjkeller.com, what is another way that a driver can contact your office or your company for them to get a hold of someone to get started on using your services?
Yeah, that's good. So the best way is probably to start out with jjkeller.com for these D.O.T. authority services. There's an 800 number. May I give it?
Yep, go ahead.
It's 888-601-2017. And the folks there can give you more information about what we're talking about today with the D.O.T. authority services.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish this off and wrap it up?
Well, like I said, so many folks that do partner with us are thankful that they do, and they continue that relationship year after year. And the primary reason for that is this is what we do for a living, so they're able to do what they do for a living.
That's a good way of putting it. I never really honestly thought of it in that aspect. You do what you do for your living, but we do it to help you accomplish that.
That's exactly right. It's the space I live in every day.
So you said the number is 888-601-2017? Is that what he said?
Yes, exactly right. So the 888-601 and then 2017.
And jjkeller.com. I'm sure you got a Facebook page, Twitter, all that stuff. I'm sure you're all socially active, correct?
All the social medias from LinkedIn, and another great educational source is our J.J. Keller YouTube channel. A lot of educational items, out there. We have a tremendous amount of white papers that are available on jjkeller.com, where we take a deep dive into, for instance, fleet legalization or the new hours of service flexibility items, and really spell it out to what does this possibly mean for your organization.
Are you tweeting the tip of the week too?
Yes, absolutely. We have the Twitter handles and the LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Sweet.
Yeah, I'm on your Facebook page too. So yeah, I'm actually gonna bookmark you so that I can go there periodically too, because I know there's times where I would like to know certain things when I pull it up to when we're gonna do a podcast on certain regulations that might be new. This was gonna help me also make sure that I keep within the correct word usage, because I can flubber my words sometimes to make sure that I'm not misguiding anybody.
Yeah, and Rick, the other thing is maybe we can get your contact number personally, and you can be like our go-to person for compliant questions we may have over the next year or two. We could text you and say, hey, we got a question we want to bring on the air with another truck driver, and you can answer a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Be more than happy to do that with you folks. Happy to come on almost at any time, even on short notice. So if there's something that comes up in the industry, and you want or need an expert to talk about it, if it's not me, we have somebody else in the office that would be available and be knowledgeable on the topic, I am sure.
Rick, forgive us for not knowing your last name. We're looking through the paperwork and do not see it at all. And Ruth Ann's going, I don't know. How do you know? We don't know.
What is it? What is it? So the phonetical pronunciation of it is M-A-L-C-O, so it's Malco.
Okay.
But that's not how it's spelled. It's spelled M-A-L-C-H-O-W.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, Ruth Ann, are you ready to wrap this thing up? What an educational... this wasn't our normal joking around trucking thing, talking about everything. We're actually putting out some useful information today.
I absorbed it.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Wow.
I absorbed it. It went fast because I was really listening to everything that you had said, Rick, and I really do appreciate you coming on to the show.
My brain scrambled. I listened to 10%. I lost it all. It's all that. That's why I would need Keller.
He always does that, though.
I don't. I'm one of those guys that goes to an orientation and retains 10% of the 100% I heard. That's just me.
Well, the good thing about it.
That's why we like you record so much, and so it's able to be replayed back. So good for you folks.
Well, that's a good thing about with the podcast. They can scoot it back a little bit and say, no, what did Rick just say I needed to do? And you could scoot it back and hear it all over again and get that number and get all the information that they need so that they can come on and be compliant with all of the federal regulations and state regulations by coming to J.J. Keller.
There you go. So Rick Malco from J.J. Keller, awesome information here on Talk CDL for all you truck drivers that are looking for some help with all your compliant questions. Maybe want to hook up with Keller and have them be basically your safety department and your human resources all in one shot. It sounds like you're going to give them a call at 888-601-2017. Just a phone call away, and they can help you become a trucking company in no time at all. Rick, we appreciate you coming on the show so much. And if you'd stay on the line while we finish the show up for about 30 seconds, and we'll come back and get some numbers.
All right, wonderful.
All right, perfect. All right, Ruth Ann, J.J. Keller, what a great, they've been sponsoring us for a couple months, and, our policy is to have, the sponsors on a show, and I love it when we actually put out a useful podcast. Normally it's clowning around and trucking things, which is still useful, but this is important stuff. This is super important stuff.
Well, it's kind of like putting a name to a face. Sometimes when you hear the commercial, the ad for them, you're getting the information, but you don't really get enough of the information. So when you can actually listen to us speaking with them and getting a little bit more from the representative of what all they do have to offer, you can really get a little bit more grasp on what you need to do as a driver on being compliant and what the different things mean, because there's a lot of stuff still that I don't understand.
I was going to say also, that was like the tip of the iceberg. What he gave us in all reality, that was an hour show. I guarantee you he could probably talk to us for like the next 6 months and keep the subject going to something new that we didn't even hear about. So, he's right. Go to the experts. I mean, you don't. Well, we would fix our own toilet, but most people have to call a plumber. You know that. That's
when he says we, it's always me.
It's
just saying.
Right. You're my handyman or handy girl. All right. So you ready to wrap this up? You got the word of the day?
I do.
Hey, you know what? Let me grab Rick. Let him become part of the word of the day. Hold on a second. Rick, you still with us? Rick?
I am.
Hey, listen, one of our things every podcast, Ruth Ann brings up the word of the day by Word Genius, so we thought we'd bring you in and maybe, you know what, Rick, you do have a big brain. You probably heard of the word, but let's hear what it is, Ruth Ann.
Oh, this is new.
It is a new one?
This is a new one. I'm actually going to have to ask Miss Debbie if she ever heard it.
Play it, will you?
There's no need to play it. It's called buck and wing.
Well, go ahead and let's hear her say it. You got to hit the word.
You got to hear
Genius.
her see it? Okay. Let me pull her up.
Buck and wing.
Buck and wing. Oops.
Buck and wing.
Buck and wing.
Buck and wing.
Spell it.
Buck like a deer. And wing.
So that's an actual word. Buck and wing.
Buck and wing.
All right, Rick, have you heard that word?
I have never heard of. Is it the wade or wave?
It's a word. It's called buck and wing. It's.
Give us definition.
It's a noun.
All right.
You have stumped the expert.
Okay.
Please help me understand buck and wade.
Okay. It's a lively solo tap dance, typically one done in wooden soled shoes. So when you seen Fred Astaire tapping away, he was buck and winging.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's a word we're probably never going to use. Well, we do have a daughter in dance, though. So, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Rick, we appreciate you, brother. Just stay on the line. We're going to be right back. Ruth Ann, you ready?
Peace.
Peace. Praise the Lord.